Okay, hello everyone. So we will start. Thank you for all being here. Thank you for the team, the organization, for the Mediterranean Pavilion. Thank you also to all partners who make it possible to have for the first time one pavilion dedicated to Mediterranean challenges. To discuss that all together, it's very important. My name is Théophile BONGARTS. I work for the Ocean and Climate Platform, and I will be the moderator of this session today. Briefly, the Ocean and Climate Platform was created at the COP21, just before the COP21. And the objective was really to push the recognition of the ocean into the climate negotiations. So that's one good result today, I think. The ocean is present, and we will be organizing the Ocean Day on the 16th, next Wednesday. So one full day dedicated to the ocean. The Ocean Climate Platform is a network of different NGOs, private sectors, foundation, research institutes, all focusing on the link between the ocean and the climate, trying to promote and to protect the ocean as best as we can. But today we are here to talk about the coasts. And 3 years ago, we landed on the coast and we start focusing on coastal cities. We launched an initiative called Cities, focusing on how to adapt to one major challenge of climate change, which is sea level rise. And how to adapt to sea level rise, what are the best practices we can promote. And that was for the best because we had the opportunity to start working with the Plan Bleu, and we thank the Plan Bleu today to be the co-organizer of this event, to work with the PAPRAC, to work with AVITEM, to work with MedCities that are present today. We have today 1 hour. We have 4 speakers, so we will quickly jump into this event. And so welcome. This event is entitled Coastal Adaptation Across the Mediterranean, Solutions Driven by Cities Network. And so important to have the scientific context at the beginning. We are used to do that, so I will welcome Mrs. NEGEV to start to set the scene a bit. Mrs. NEGEV, you are the head of the Health System Policy and Administration Program at the University of Haifa, Israel, and you're also part of the MEDECC. The MEDECC, it's a scientific network working on climate issues on the Mediterranean, so a network that you all have to know here in this pavilion. So I give you the floor to tell us about what are the main climate challenge in the Mediterranean, and for coastal cities too. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci. Tode. Shukran. Let's start. The Mediterranean is a very unique region of the world. It is the meeting point of 3 continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe. It is the meeting point of different climate, geographical, and cultural contexts. And therefore, to understand climate impacts in this region, we need a regional lens and regional collaboration. This is the aim of the MEDECC scientific network, to contribute to the improvement of policies that assure the well-being of current and future generations in the region. We are a network of about 200 authors synthesizing thousands of scientific papers in order to provide the science for policymakers. It's an IPCC style work, but at the regional level, because our region is so diverse and requires its unique aspects. The first report, MAR 1, was published exactly 2 years ago. It's available on the website. It's over 600 pages long, and there is also a summary for policymakers that was endorsed by relevant stakeholders in the region. There are many drivers of change that are climate related in the region. We have land-sea use change with a lot of urbanization, afforestation. We have increased water, air, and land pollution, invasion of species on land and in water, lower precipitation, so it's an already dry and warm region of the world where we see a long dry summers naturally these summers are getting longer and drier with climate change, with decreased precipitation, especially in the southern part of the Mediterranean, where we already observe 20 to 50% less precipitation in areas that are already in drought and in water insecurity. It's a major risk. In addition, the region is warming faster than the global average. It's a climate hotspot. If the global average temperature rise is 1 degree, in the Mediterranean it's already 1.5. And finally, our main driver of change for today is sea level rise that we experience in the Mediterranean. We have already observed sea level rise of about 3.7 millimeter a year in the recent decade, and our estimation is that by 2100 the sea level will be about 37 to 90 centimeters above the 2000 levels, and perhaps even more. Why is this a worry? In the Mediterranean, the coastal risks include floods, expected to increase in frequency and intensity, storms, including Mediterranean cyclones that pose serious social and ecological threats, and extreme climate that interferes with life, safety, health, and education. You can see here the city of Venice, which is famous for sinking. Venice is one well-known example. We know the health implications, the economic implications, the implications on tourism. But today, when we are on Egypt, we can also think about the sea level rise in Egypt, a very big country, where sea level, an agricultural country at the Nile Delta, where sea level rise impacts agriculture, water security with salination of the aquifer, loss of land where people can live, and additional major threats from sea level rise, and this is really throughout the basin. Some additional specific threats for Mediterranean coastal cities. Because the Mediterranean is characterized by microtides and not major tides, cities have been built very close to the water level, and therefore the urban infrastructure, housing, and other infrastructures are very close to the sea, and any rise in the sea level poses major risk. In addition, we have mass tourism and urbanization. It's a densely populated region where these are all threatened by the sea level rise. We experience loss of biodiversity in sea and on land, reduced sediment flow, and as we say, a threat to cultural heritage from the parts of Egypt with its very rich cultural heritage to Italy that we mentioned, and really throughout the basin, many countries have their heritage at risk. A specific look at society and human security, these are undermined too by climate change throughout the region, but especially in the southern part of the region, where the population is at risk of water insecurity, food insecurity, exacerbated poverty. These are all problems that already exist in the southern Mediterranean, but climate change widens the gaps between the northern Mediterranean and the southern Mediterranean. There is also a gap in capacities to adapt and become resilient. And really, we have populations of hundreds of millions that are at risk to the very fundamental basic human rights, health, economic, and violence threats. As a public health researcher, I would like to focus on health in urban Mediterranean contexts. So we know that we are experiencing a trend of rise in vector-borne diseases, in destructive extreme events, with every 1 degree in temperature causing to about 2% increase in mortality. We have increase in morbidity, including respiratory and cardiovascular morbidity. And of course, the people in poverty, the elderly, and the very young are at higher risk. At MEDECC, we assessed the risks and the dangers, but we also aim to assess the solutions. We are scientists working to provide the science to policymakers, and therefore I would like to propose some of the solutions that we've assessed in the report. One major theme is nature-based solutions. So we propose to protect coastal systems from erosion using nature-based solutions. To prevent soil degradation, we propose a focus on water infiltration, on trees. So planting trees in urban cities provides shade, reduces the heat burden, protect human health, and also it's a carbon sink. So basically we have some nature-based solutions that are both mitigation and adaptation co-benefits. And we propose to protect the seagrass, which is protecting the soil from erosion and also used to sink, as a carbon sink, so another mitigation adaptation nature-based solution. An important message is to minimize the north-south gap in adaptation through solidarity and sharing resources and practices, protecting cultural heritage throughout the basin, synergizing adaptation and mitigation. I already gave some examples. We can also think about health co-benefits. So the synergy of mitigation, adaptation, and health, there is the science to find the solutions that are a win-win-win from all aspects. And of course, to prepare for sea level rise, both through hard protection of brick walls and seawalls, and soft protection of shore nourishment and wetland restoration, as you can see in the photo. Finally, again, as a public health researcher, I would like to emphasize the recommendations of the health community for the COP. Health is still largely absent from the negotiations, and we would like to emphasize the importance of integrating health and health resilience to all aspects of the negotiations: mitigation, adaptation, loss and damage, and finance, because really health is the one thing that is important to every human being in the world and is threatened by climate change, and we can still work to protect it and to promote health core benefits in climate policy and use health as an accelerator for climate action. And with that, I would like to conclude to thank the supporting institutes that support the MEDECC Scientists Network, and to keep you tuned for the coming special reports, including one on coastal risks, at the MEDECC website. Thank you very much. Shukran, toda, and merci.
Thank you very much, Maya.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting. We get your point on health, of course. It's very important. Thanks for underlying that. Also, thanks for your optimism, presenting that it's possible to have win-win-win solution. It's great. And I also like when you talk about the very low tide. I agree with you. It's one of the specificity in the Mediterranean. And it also has an impact on the perception of the risk. It means that some people don't really imagine and feel that, for example, the sea level is rising because of the low tide, and so it can slow down also the adaptation and the reflection on how to design resilient cities. So thank you very much. Now we will welcome online Mr. MEUNIER. So thank you for being with us, Mr. MEUNIER. You are the president of the AVITEM. You will explain us more precisely what is the AVITEM doing. But I can also call you Mr. the Ambassador, because you were the French ambassador in Croatia for 2016 until 2019. And so this position led you to work with a wide range of different actors, private foundation, cities, territories. So you decided to untitle this speech optimizing resources management in the Mediterranean. So we are curious to know more about that. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for welcoming me, and sorry for not being able to be with you in Egypt. You hear me? It's okay?
Yes.
Okay, I suppose so. Thank you so much. I would also like to commend UFM and the organizers of this meeting, and especially of this initiative of Mediterranean Pavilion, which is very, very important. I would like to complement what was said by Maya, which I thought very, very interesting, and I subscribe fully to what she said, including on the key importance of the health dimension. I'm saying this because I was a few years ago French ambassador for global health. So it is definitely a key topic for everybody, and especially on the Mediterranean theater. What I'm going to do is try to complement what Maya said, and not repeating the same thing, but being more on, let's say, avenues of cooperation, priorities, governance, and common vision, including this topic, which is very important, of management of resources, which should be tackled in a different way, given the urgency now due to the war in Ukraine and the climate urgency also. So first of all, to say that for the bulk of people, the Mediterranean is perceived as a segmented lake, but we all know that it's more than ever a single geostrategic unit and a maritime link of huge importance. So we really have to see the Mediterranean Sea as an organizing principle. What is at stake now in the Mediterranean is vital for everyone. Mediterranean quarrels about roots, neighborhood, traditions, or beliefs are not anymore the only topics on our plates. Climate change, biodiversity, pandemics, urbanization, mobilities are having a huge impact on ecosystem, tourism, and our economic and social development. Innovation and stronger cooperation between all Mediterranean shores are required. To conserve the existing good, we must act on a true political principle, which is neither conservative nor radical. Our Mediterranean countries and the European Union must step up and join their efforts to ensure the equitable and ecological transition in the Mediterranean region. A common vision should be grounded on shared challenges and climate change, of course, common potential and rich and diverse cultures, tourism potential, upcoming trends, climate adaptation, carbon neutrality, all pointing very strongly to a territorial approach, acknowledging diversity and different future prospects. This common vision should favor decentralized policies, foster transparency, and facilitate the shaping of coherent Mediterranean policies. It should build on the basis of multi-level governance, across all Mediterranean shores and be structured around ambitious priorities, focusing primarily on cooperation, innovation, and cohesion, and enabling an equitable and ecological mutation. We won't cope with such global challenges without giving higher priority to direct cooperation between Mediterranean cities and territories. By working together, they may find solutions to those global challenges consistent with the Mediterranean context in its similarity and diversity. Empowering citizens, raising advocacy and involving civil society at the local level may bring a renewed realization of the urgency of our collective destiny. Building on decentralization policies and fostering transparency may facilitate the framing of a coherent Mediterranean resilience towards forthcoming vulnerabilities. It will also be necessary to develop human resources and exchange on good and bad practices in order to get more efficiency. The pressing context urges us to identify priorities for action in an attempt to clarify if and how we need to decouple economic growth from environmental degradation, while at the same time enhancing social well-being. Among many priorities, I would like to dwell on the following one. First of all, and I will come back to that, the more efficient use of resources, because it's really a critical issue for the reason I mentioned at the beginning. Renewable energy production around the Mediterranean is of high priority in the new energy context. Secondly, nature-based solution. As you probably know, we had last year in September 2021 in Marseille, the most recent IUCN World Conservation Congress. And I would like to underline how this type of approach are essential, including in the context of climate change. For example, in terms of protection, we all know and we discover, let's say, more and more that the sea walls to avoid marine impacts are not the best solution. And there are some new types of management of this challenge, which are based on the nature-based solution, which are very promising in terms of efficiency. The other, in order to improve policy implementation in the Mediterranean, there is also a need to strengthen the science policy interface on a regional basis, taking into consideration the vital role of universities as incubators of innovation. I will, in this field, mention an initiative which is called MEUNIER, the French Agency for Sustainable Mediterranean Towns and Territories is part of this initiative. This project offers a new training program dedicated to the issue of coastal resilience of Mediterranean cities confronted with climate change. It's a partnership between 4 higher education institutions willing to pool their competencies and knowledge. We are working on the Venice Lagoon, which was mentioned by Maya, and also on the Tanger-Tétouan region in Morocco, the Étang-de-Berre close to Marseille. And it's a way to bring together insights from the social professional world with universities' works, and the aim is to draw on workshops to exchange skills and methods and to develop teaching models and open the way to tailor-made solutions in the Mediterranean. And finally, as I mentioned, we are in a new context in terms of optimizing resource management in the Mediterranean. What we try to do as AVITEM is to bring together the plurality of solutions and practices we have at our disposal. First of all, traditional ones, because we know that for a very long time, we've had good solutions which happen to be transferable knowledge nowadays, given the new context and the pressure of climate warming, and combine this with the innovative and the low-tech approach, which gives us the capacity to develop a systemic approach on those issues. The second element of this systemic approach is to, let's say, to work in a very connected way, knowing that, for example, dealing with a problem of the access to water in a given territory means going beyond the sectoral approach. This is why we commission and receive a multidisciplinary study that develops this perception of the problem of resource, energy, water, waste management, a strategy of nexus, which will be much more efficient given the interaction of those topics. And this type of strategies, which once again rely on traditional and means and innovation, seems to us to be very promising. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Meunier. And so we keep this last idea of nexus in terms of governance between the north and the south of the Mediterranean basin, and also nexus of different approach, different solutions that we have to combine if we want to address these multiple challenges. So thank you very much. Now, welcome, Mr. CANALS Molina. Thank you for being with us. So now you're the Secretary General of MedCities. You worked with the mayor of Bogota. You were the advisor of the mayor of Bogota. You have a very long experience in cities management, but you are first an environmentalist and an ecologist, both by passion, you told me. So yeah, you advised the mayor of Bogota, who is now the president of Colombia, by the way, I think, if my calculations are good. And you were mayor yourself back in Spain. And so now, can you present us what is MedCities concretely, and how you are working with local authorities, accompanying local authorities in adapting to climate change? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I always like to say hello in my language, Catalan. Bon dia. Bon dia a tothom. I would like to thank very much the UFM, the organization, fantastic work, tireless work or tiring work. And I would like also to thank Bleu and salute the initiative Ocean Climate Platform, the initiative Cities, which I had the honor also to contribute a little. And I want to highlight MEDECC contributions, because you did something amazing, in my opinion. That is, for the first time, I've been working in environmental policies for 25 years as an activist, as an expert, as a policymaker. And the first time I think that someone has achieved to send two messages that has spread, at least in my country, in Catalonia, but I think all over the Mediterranean, is two of the main conclusions of the MEDECC report. With that we are the second region, I think, more affected after the Arctic in the world. It's something that I've been heard of, but mainly that we are warming 20% faster than the global average. And I think this is maybe not common knowledge, but quite, I think that all the media has resonate this. And so behind these two messages, there is a lot of work. I know that you, so congratulations. And I cite it, and many people cite you a lot. This is a good thing. MedCities is and maybe you could please put this on only one image, one slide. MedCities is an association of 67 by the end of the month. In our General Assembly we will be 70 municipalities and metropolitan areas, metropolitan regions of the whole region, of the 3 sites or 4, depending on how you count it, of the Mediterranean region. And we like to work together, to be very useful to our members, to help each other by being a platform of innovative projects, by doing projects with our members, by being also a gate and a channel to canalize the funding opportunities to our members, to be able to do things, because there is a lot of money now, but many of the municipalities, I've been a mayor of a medium municipality in Catalonia, many of the municipalities, many of the mayors, they don't know that all this money exists, and the ones who know, they don't know how to present projects to be awarded. So we do this by helping our members in all these 3 guiding principles: sustainable development, climate crisis, mitigation, and economic and social equality linked with the SDGs. And because of that, because we try to be useful and to be and to help each other, as I said, and learning from others' mistakes. I think that as a mayor I can say it, and as advisor of mayors, one of the things that I had the opportunity to do in Bogota with the now president of Colombia, it was transferring some knowledge and some mistakes that we already did in Catalonia, for example, in urban planning, in mobility, because we did it sooner. So, and we learned a lot from our mistakes. And you would be amazed how mayors are much alike among themselves, regardless of where they are based, and how much they learn from each other. So this is very important. I think we provide this kind of platform that we learn each other. And regarding this, I would like to concretize how we can, from local authorities, be helpful to improve a little how we manage coastal belt, how we manage the coastal, how we manage the seas that we have in front of our cities and villages. And firstly, I would say this is counterintuitive, because many of the mayors are very happy with not having limits. Not having limits. They are happy urbanizing. Or they have been happy urbanizing. We have been urbanized, I think, 2 weeks ago in Brussels, presenting the results of the biodiversity protection community. Some experts told that we have urbanized almost 70% of the coast in the Mediterranean. So, and this is made by artificialization, by infrastructures, also by promenade by the sea. I don't know, in coastal path by the sea, and a lot of mayors like to do that and to show that. But we have been artificializing, and now they see the problems. You show some pictures of the sea removing the sand where are beaches, and they want to have beaches because there is some kind of incomes for the tourism, and the beaches on autumn are disappearing, and then they extract the sand to put it again on the beaches with a lot of money, with a lot of impacts on Posidonia, for example. So now they are realizing, some of these mayors, that we cannot continue doing this, and we have to do other things. So for me, it's very important what, for example, I know it quite well, the government of Catalonia have done. They have preserved what is remaining of the Catalan coast by saying some of the lands and the lots that were planned to be built and have not been built yet, they will not be built ever. By preserving it, and there is some kind of controversial thing, but there is also some kind of hooray or some happiness from many of the people, many of the organizations, the NGOs, and some municipalities, because I strongly believe that we need some kind of super municipal management of the coastal zone to say what we have to protect, and to say municipalities, you cannot develop that, because there is a superior good, which is the preservation of the ecosystems on the coastal belt. So this is why I, as a former mayor and a mayor, I ask for limits also to some municipalities. And I think this, I know that this is unpopular among some mayors, but we need to raise awareness by communication when they want, but by rules when they don't want, because there is a superior good, which is a country or a Mediterranean vision, a Mediterranean scope. But what we can also do more actively, we can raise awareness among general public, because we are closer to them. And also, some mayors can be aware because of their NGOs, civil society on their territories. So it is a bilateral, a bidirectional exchange that can be done, and we are closer to them, and we can raise awareness on this regard. We can also do some fiscal measures. To good examples, to the municipalities, in some of them that they have some competences in fiscal measures, they can boost some good behaviors, and they can punish some bad behaviors, or they can regulate some activities. For example, Plan Bleu, I also contributed a little, has conducted the guidelines for sustainable cruises and recreational boat. There's a lot of recreational boat. There are in front of cities, and they can be regulated by local authorities, and we can regulate that. We can maybe ban some activities in some zones, and maybe accept and allow some activities in some other zones of the coastal belt. So we can regulate activities. We can do a lobby in front of national authorities also to be regulated, because a coastal zone normally are from state regulations. And as I said, we can do soft ecosystemic planning. We've got competencies in planning. We have to incorporate this approach, this ecosystemic approach. And more and more, I criticize the mayors that some years ago did bad things, but there are many new mayors willing to do different things with ecosystemic approach, and some saying we cannot continue to do that. And they are not saying the same old things, saying to people, don't worry, there will be sand here. Maybe next year we cannot have sand this here, because it's absurd to put sand when the sea is removing it, and we have to extract it, making some impacts, and wasting a lot of energy. So there is some kind of different things. So we have Barcelona, for example, we have Marseille, they are members of MedCities. They are making good example with civil society, trying to raise awareness and trying to protect, and doing what is, many of you, what is called civil science, societal science, that it helps a lot to raise awareness. And let me just to finalize, I would like to say hello to one friend that wants to be there unperceived. We have there some of the world leaders now. That guy, that new friend, Francisco Javier Vera, is a Colombian leader. He is ambassador of the United Nations. He's advisor of the United Nations of Infancy Policy. He is Colombian. I've been in Colombia. We became friends yesterday. He is a new kind of leader, communicating and sending messages. He also ambassador of the UN in Colombia, of the European Union of Colombia. Thank you for being here. And his example is also a good example of new generations raising awareness, and many leaders, world leaders, are hearing people like him. So I think it's something that we have to be happy to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Josep. Thank you. And yes, of course, you underline that we have to connect different great examples, and that you are collecting some, and I think it's perfectly linked with the last presentation we will have today from Lisa Devignol, who is online. Lisa is working for the Ocean and Climate Platform on the cities project that you mentioned too, and that's really also the idea of this project, to try to identify what are the solutions in different cities and make connections, because we need, of course, good examples. And I think that when you are a mayor from a coastal city, and that you know that on another territory some people are starting to adapt, it's encouraging you. Sorry, I'm speaking too far from the mic. So Lisa, the floor is yours. Present us what you are doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the introduction, and it's great to hear so many presentations today. And I'm sorry I can't be with you in person, but I'll try in my talk to focus on levers for actions in terms of governance, in terms of what cities can do in their modalities of governance to facilitate their adaptation. And this is based on the conclusions of work we've conducted with local authorities, with researchers, with NGOs, with networks within the Mediterranean region. And the further conclusions are available on our website in a report that I invite you to read, but I'll get started. If that works, yeah, cool. I won't get into the details, but this is an initiative that's led by the Ocean and Climate Platform that Théophile presented earlier. I would just like to add that through the work that we do within the platform, we are in a position to convey our recommendations and elevate the voices of local authorities within international arenas as observer within UNFCCC and CBD COPs, as well as Ocean and Coastal Zone focal point within the Global Climate Action Agenda. So the Cities Initiative really was born on the conclusion, on the observation that cities, local authorities, whether at city level or regional level, lack a lot of information, whether it be data or returns on experiences from peers, to scale up their adaptation and to plan in the long term. So we try to meet these needs by bridging the gaps and by connecting different types of stakeholders that don't always interact with each other. So we work together on generating and disseminating actionable knowledge, on facilitating the exchange of returns on experiences, on promoting good practices, and on that basis, so that results in reports, in workshops. We have an online map that displays a number of action deployed worldwide. And so on that basis, intersecting the views of these different stakeholders, we build our advocacy work that then we promote at government and at international level. And so we do that in 5 different regions of the world: Northern Europe, the US West Coast, West Africa, the Pacific, and the Mediterranean region that we're focusing on today. So we've seen it, I won't go into that again, but the Mediterranean region is subject to strong erosion that is coupled with exacerbating sea level rise and other impacts of climate change. And on top of that, the region is urbanizing really quickly, and in particular on the southern shore. And so we have about 1/3 of the total population that lives in coastal cities. And at the same time, these cities and the entire region is highly dependent on the coastline for activities, whether that be fishing or touristic activities. So the economy of the region very much depends on the health of the coastline and how cities will respond to the threats of erosion, of extreme events, of sea level rise. So there are frameworks available, frameworks and networks that exist already, such as the ICZM protocol, which offers tools as well as guidelines. And we have networks of cities. We've had AVITEM, we've had MedCities today presenting their work, presenting their action. And so we can capitalize on these networks and these frameworks to advance, as well as on further regional expertise, such as MEDECC. And so all these groups do provide tools. We've got the Agilidad platform, for instance, that provides also returns on experiences. But despite this, we're still fairly at the early stages of adaptation in the region, and that's because the topic and the challenge hasn't been fully considered within policymaking until fairly recently. And so the policies that are in place do not reflect the realities and do not sufficiently respond, generally speaking, to the challenges. There's also geographical disparities that remain between the northern shore and the southern shore, but also within those shores, in between cities, in between regions. And so we are at different stages of advancement. And historically, the approach that has been favored is one that is reactive. So typically, after an extreme event, it's about rebuilding exactly as things were before, or taking the approach of hard protection, so like seawalls, for instance, without consideration of the impacts of these structures on the wider ecosystem, but also on the very security of the adaptation planning in place. And the risk with that, the problem with that, is that it does not reflect the long-term nature of the process of sea level rise, and it robs us from the opportunity to build real resilience, community resilience through adaptation action. And so what we have collectively reached as conclusion within working groups that we've held, the workshop, the preliminary interviews that enabled us to better understand how the region globally respond to sea level rise, is that our first level for action is about collaborating, working together. So strengthening the resilience of our coast through regional and territorial cooperation. And that entails reinforcing exchanges of knowledge, exchanges of know-how, exchanges of things that have worked or haven't worked through pilot projects and through previous projects between stakeholders. So in France, there's, for instance, the Mon Littoral platform that does that. There's also the SCORE EU project that does it. It works with 10 cities in Europe and in Turkey that pull together their knowledge, their experience, and that function with living labs. It's also important to adopt an integrated approach, so working across jurisdictions and recognizing that sea level rise affects the entire coastline and doesn't stop at the boundaries of one municipality. So this has been done, for instance, in Slovenia. So the two cities of Koper and Izola got together. They're two touristic cities, and they very much rely on one another, and they're linked by a road that was subject to erosion, and that also was reinforcing erosion by its very presence. So the two cities got together and actioned a managed retreat option. So they relocated the roads by working together. Another way of strengthening collaborations across jurisdictions is to widen the scale of concerted action. This is something that is being done at the moment in France with the Casadapt project. So the municipalities of the Sofia and Antipolis area are getting together and are developing visions across the different jurisdictions and with the different stakeholders that are involved in this transition. And so all the benefits of working together beyond the very efficient are about the very efficiency of planning. It's about pooling means of resources. It's about pooling financial means as well. It's about understanding the coastline, understanding how the different populations react and what are their aspirations for the future as well. And so beyond this first lever, another one is about reconciling short, medium, and long-term adaptation. So as I said earlier, the typical way of approaching adaptation in the Mediterranean is protecting the coastline. It's about reacting to an event that has happened. Actually, adaptation should be about preparing. It should be about planning ahead, instead of reacting. to avoid risk of maladaptation. So to do that, we can capitalize on the experience and knowledge of peers in disaster risk reduction, so through early warning systems, for example. We can rely on the tools and the instruments that exist, such as the XCZM protocol, and for instance, the setback zones that can help limit the artificialization of the coastline. This can help the conservation or the recovery of ecosystem. This can also support better public access of communities to the coastline. And so really, it's very much aligned with the attractiveness objective, the economy objectives that are crucial to so many Mediterranean cities. And going further, integrating uncertainties and mobilizing communities is key in developing visions for the long term. And there is a methodological framework that exists for this. It's called adaptive pathways. And so it enables the definition of a very long-term objective with different ways to achieve that and ways to transition if the conditions are changing, to transition from one pathway to another without staying stuck. And in this case, you have a long-term goal, but you also have shorter-term actions that can be actioned and that can be used as transitional phases. So you can have in the very short-term protection measures if this is what is needed at the city level. But then in the longer term, you're going to transition from these protection measures to other types of measures. You're going to work with your ecosystems. You're going to relocate some of your assets, some of your infrastructures. And this can truly lead to transformational changes and resilience of communities at large. And I would like to end on this note that adaptation action is a journey. It's about transforming the ways, reorganizing the ways that we inhabit the coastline, not only to protect our infrastructures and activities and economies, but also this is about giving an opportunity for the coastal populations to make the cities a better, safer place to live. So I would really like to stop it at this and insist on the fact that adaptation action truly is an opportunity to transform the way we inhabit the coastline for the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lisa. It was very interesting, and thank you for giving us some very concrete examples. It's nice to see that there is really things happening. I think that here we are all working on the Mediterranean Sea, all in contact with people and cities that are facing those climate challenges. And the objective of a COP like this is really to be connected. So a lot of people here in the room are working together on these topics. But if some other first want to react, have something to share, you are welcome to. And to join the reflection, that's really the objective. And we see how much this challenge is difficult to address. And we have to start now, even if we have to adapt for the future. So if someone has one very short reaction, please feel free. Always difficult to jump in the discussion like this, but it's not a problem because we really don't have so much time. So we'd have to. Yes, okay.
First, thank you for all the very good presentations. But I have not a question, but it's a comment for the First Lady. I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. I very much appreciate your talk about the gap between the North and South, and because I am coming from the South. I agree with all what you said between the gap in knowledge and the resilience and even the capacity degree, but I don't know how you see the vulnerability to violence, because I a bit disagree about this, and I don't know which data and which emphasis you are relied on for this fact, if it is a fact. Thank you.
Can you provide a very short answer?
Yes. Thank you very much for your great point. We have evidence that in the Mediterranean, extreme heat leads to violence, including interpersonal violence, homicides, violence against women. This is something that we have more research from the north. And in our synthesis, we saw that globally and sometimes in the global south, climate change leads to droughts and food insecurity, and this is a trigger for conflicts as well. So it's a worldwide phenomena, but wherever the population is more vulnerable and the resources are more vulnerable, there is an increased risk. I hope it answers the question. Happy to talk after.
Sorry, we have some people online, so they cannot hear you. But maybe we'll just take a last speaker, who is Lina Tode, who will conclude this event, and you can after discuss it just outside. Thank you very much. So, Lisa Tode, thanks you for being with us today. You are Deputy Director at the Bleu, who was the co-organizer of this event. So you have a long experience in working with coastal cities too, for more than 10 years. So please, can you just conclude this event as you want? Thanks.
Thank you, Théophile. Thanks to everybody who made this event possible today. So for those of you who don't know so well, Bleu is a regional activity center of the United Nations Environment Programme Mediterranean Action Plan, and we work in the framework of the Barcelona Convention since the 1970s. And at Bleu, we study the link between environment and development in the Mediterranean at the interface between science and decision making. Now, coastal risks are a very important theme and have been for a long time, but are also currently with different initiatives that are going on. For example, we're working together with our sister center, PAPRAC, in the framework of the Global Environmental Facility funded MED program, where we are supporting the elaboration of coastal plans in Montenegro and Morocco through the application of a foresight methodology, which we call Climagine. And we also are conducting regional climate risk assessments, engaging different stakeholders in the region. We are also piloting a local foresight exercise at the scale of the coastal area in the south of France at the community of agglomeration of Sofia Antipolis. Lisa already mentioned this project, and just to let you know, in the side event that will come up just after this one, you will have a presentation in detail of this project. Bleu is also the host of the Scientific Secretariat of MEDECC, the Mediterranean Experts on Climate and Environmental Change. And following the publication of the first Mediterranean Assessment Report, several important issues have emerged that require deeper analysis. And for example, projections that concern the future sea level rise in the Mediterranean evolve very rapidly, which is why MEDECC presently works on a special report on coastal risks to be published by the end of 2023. Now, today's side event reveals the importance of the collaboration and experience sharing. And although each Mediterranean coastal city has its particularities, the sharing of our regional common experience is very essential to improve resilience to climate change in the coastal area. If we look at the unprecedented speed of environmental and climate change that we face on the Mediterranean coast, we realize that we also need an unprecedented speed in the deployment of adaptation solutions. And this does not leave us actually much time for doing trial and error, which means that experience sharing on which solutions work in which context and at which scale of change is absolutely crucial. So this is what we try to initiate today or continue, build up on previous work that we have done all together with the partners here. And in this sense, we are looking very forward to continuing our work with partners around the Mediterranean. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And thank you for all of you to participate, to attend this event. I think that the show must go on because there is another event right after on similar topics. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to the people online. Thank you to the technical team. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right on time. Perfect.